because there are certain drugs or substances, we actually prefer calling them substances, that work in such a way that they affect one's brain. One can become addicted to them. So what is addiction is when someone compulsively seeks out this substance, keeps using it in spite of it causing them problems in a whole range of areas: health, social, legal, or other problems. So they find that they are not able to control the use of this substance on their own. And we have a whole range of addictive substances, including alcohol, tobacco, including good drugs like marijuana, marunji, and others that I'll not mention, lest people get ideas. So these drugs, because of the way they can affect the brain, cause addiction. That's why we classify them as addictive substances. And therefore, as health professionals, we are mindful that someone can develop a drug or substance addiction or substance use disorder. How do we determine that someone has a substance or substance use disorder or a drug addiction? There are a number of ways. For example, the reason we're talking about it today is that if any of us, if you realize that you are addicted, because you'd realize that you're addicted, if you know you keep using this substance, it is causing you problems, you can't live, you feel you cannot live without it, each time you're thinking about it, it is causing you difficulties, but you keep using it. There are certain signs of addiction. I mentioned some of them, but principally it's that you feel you cannot control the use of this substance, you're always looking out for it, it is always on your mind, you have to go out of your way to look for it. It is causing you some difficulties either in your health or in other important areas, and yet you find that you keep using it. And then there are also other signs, depending on the drug that you're using, but those are from the health worker's perspective, that these are signs of addiction. So, as an individual who is using drugs, you can actually know that you are addicted and maybe seek out help. Then as a health worker, there are certain characteristic signs depending on which drugs, because different drugs affect the body differently. Though they all cause an addiction, but they all have different signs. Whether someone is using alcohol, whether they're using cigarettes, whether they all cause different signs, and as a health worker we should be able to pick that up. Then also as a family member or as a friend, you can notice somebody either using the drug or having changes in behavior which are related to drug use, in their own behavior, in how they are relating, involvement in crime or other problematic behavior is usually another sign. Another disturbances in their general health. You might want to think that this might be a drug problem, especially if there are certain changes and if there are certain signs that he might be using some drugs. Because some of them we can, for example, someone who is using alcohol, you'll notice that a lot of the times when they are getting drunk, they're not working, they are shaking, sometimes there are certain signs that we all know about alcohol. So that's how we can determine. You might not conclusively determine, and that's why it is important that you go to the right place to have an assessment done. As an individual, or if you have a family member, to encourage them or find a way of taking them there so that a proper assessment is done to determine whether they have an addiction, a drug or alcohol addiction. And like you asked, where do you get the right information? It is important that you go to like a recognized health facility or a recognized professional who can give you the right information, because there's a lot of information about drugs. Some of them are actually encouraging people to use drugs. There's a lot of misinformation. For example, a lot of people now are justifying the use of using marijuana because they think it is medicinal, but not knowing that marijuana has different components that make up the marijuana, and the medicinal one is just one component, but which is manufactured solely for that purpose. But when you're using the whole marijuana, it is mostly, you're taking in mostly the detrimental ones. that have potential to cause mental health problems. So for example, that information. It is important that you get the right information. And probably these days in this world of information, there is as much bad information as is good information. So, if one gets to the health facility and has an addiction or substance use problem, it is a medical condition. So, we approach it in that sense. It involves with conducting a clinical assessment like we do for any other patient with any other condition, be it malaria, be it pneumonia, or anything, and then we determine their treatment needs. And for some of these substances, the way they affect the body is that if someone suddenly reduces or stops using the substance, then they get what we call withdrawal symptoms. And that's what makes them always go back and do what? Use the substance, because those withdrawal symptoms are very discomforting. And so those are the withdrawal symptoms. So as part of our treatment, for some of those substances, because other substances might not have the typical withdrawal, might have other effects which we also manage. But like I said, as we determine the treatment needs involve both medication needs, counseling needs, social needs, and other needs. There's a whole range of needs for someone with an addiction problem, because addiction problems, like we say, cause a range of problems. An addiction or a substance use problem causes a range of problems, medical or health problems, financial, legal, social, educational, across the board. So all those needs need to be addressed during treatment. So dealing with withdrawal is part of the medical treatment, and sometimes that's what we refer to as detoxification, because it is when you're trying to help the person withdraw under medical supervision, and it is important, and it needs to be done under medical supervision, and that goes alongside other treatments, which all depend on the substance that you're using and also how it has affected you and your environment.
So some of the costs of addiction to society.
The costs of addiction to society there are so many costs. They start as an individual cost. Like I said, what makes it an addiction is you continue using the substances despite the problem that it's causing you. So the cost might be because of the health problems it's causing you, the social problems, in that you lose your job, you lose your family, you lose your friends. All those are social costs. The economic costs, you lose your job. There are a whole range of costs. But importantly also, addiction is very much related to crime. And you know the social cost of crime to a society. So we don't only look at addiction as a health problem. It is a problem that not only affects the individual, but the family, the community, and society at large. So there's a very big cost to addiction. And why it is important that we continue working towards having affordable, accessible, and effective addiction services is that if they're there, then they go a long way in reducing these costs to individuals, to families, to societies. So you are not put a figure, because it all depends on an individual's experience and also how that individual's experience has affected the community around them. Sure, I've answered your question.